Welcome to another edition of The Wrap, everybody. Mark Ennis, Louis Rabeau in the house to help break down more Cardinal and Cats basketball. We'll start with Kentucky. This was as close to, I don't know if it was a must-win, but this was one that Kentucky really could have used against Kansas to bolster its NCAA tournament resume. I think this UK team has definitely gotten better since that loss to South Carolina, but Louis, this is still not the team that everybody wanted to see at the beginning of the season, and Kansas was another indictment of that.
Yeah, it's certainly not what we thought we'd have when the players come back that do. You infuse a guy like a Casey Wallace onto this team, and where they are now, 35th in the net, for example, with one quad one win. I mean, people need to remember that only 32 at-large teams actually get into this tournament. 58 teams in the NCAA right now have at least 2 quad one wins. Kentucky has 1. They are 1-6 in quad one. So they are behind a ton of teams. The line resume, if you take the Kentucky off of it, it's going to be a problem from them come Selection Sunday. Kansas was a good size matchup for Kentucky. They really were. They don't have a lot of, not a lot of length, not a lot of strength on that team. And it didn't matter because Kansas has better players. And it was a talent matchup that was terrible for Kentucky. And it was a reminder, I think, confirmation, frankly, that they're a 9, 10, 11 seed. And that's what Kentucky is this year. And the goal should be, rather than big picture stuff with them, just game to game, win the next one. Just win the next one. They go to Ole Miss next. You can't lose that game. Literally cannot lose that game. I called this Confirmation Saturday for our 2 local teams.
Confirmation.
Okay.
Because Louisville's playing Notre Dame?
Well, it's part of it. That's a good joke. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
But it reminded me of week 5 of the college football season when Kentucky traveled to Ole Miss and fumbled away the game. And that was going to be their season. And Louisville went to BC and lost, and it confirmed that they weren't going to be a great team. This was a confirmation day for me. UofL's bad at basketball. They just are. And it's not going to get better. And I think for Kentucky, they confirmed that they're a 9, 10, 11 seed if they're lucky, if they win all of the games that they have to win and they pull off one of these quad one wins. But they can't be something like 1-7, 1-8 and expect on Selection Sunday to just waltz into the tournament.
It felt a little bit like regression to more, and I think if you were a Kentucky fan, you're a little bit encouraged after Tennessee, and subsequently you kind of feeling like, well, maybe something got switched on, for them, and then to play a game at home with every opportunity in the world to sort of blow the roof off of it, where Cal had sounded, I think, kind of conciliatory towards fans. Sure. From Tennessee forward, and I think it was reciprocated, and there was a real opportunity there for that place to re-embrace him and for him to re-embrace them, and Rupp is a hard place to play again and all that. And instead, it was another, you mentioned it, tactician. We're going to isolate Shibwe, and we've got guys who can make shots from deep, and you don't have enough of those, and you certainly don't rely on them enough. And it was scary, I think, that you felt like you went back to how you played in some of those earlier matchups.
I don't know if anyone else felt this way, and Kentucky kept getting close. It always felt like Kansas was going to have an answer.
And something that keeps reoccurring is something you mentioned, the ball screen problem.
Yes.
Where Bill Self is as good of an X's and O's coach in college basketball. He will find your weakness, but he is, the 3rd, 4th, how many coaches this year have said post-game, yeah, we know how to attack Kentucky.
Yeah.
Ball screens. You throw as many as you can at them. And that, to me, is a bit of an indictment of Calipari and the coaching staff to try and figure out a solution for a problem that keeps killing them in games.
Well, and that, I think is also an indictment that would work in both directions. The things that plagued both Louisville and Kentucky earlier this year continue to plague them. Kentucky's in a better situation. They're playing for a little bit higher stakes. But the analogy holds, like the things that are keeping Kentucky from being one of the teams you thought they'd be, the things that keep Louisville from being anything, have been here from day one, and they're not any better. Teams that are going to be competitive and make a run in March, like they're not playing in games like this. They have wins, substantial wins.
Correct.
And they have losses, but they have their issues. They work through them. But having a team that never wins one of these but doesn't lose any of the really bad ones, like they don't go anywhere in March.
Yeah, and we heard all this week on the national stage at least, what's wrong with Kansas? They've lost 3 straight games. Yeah. They played 12 quad one games. They're 8-4 in those games. That's what we should expect from a John Calipari coach team with the returning National Player of the Year.
Louisville is, goodness, I don't even know how to intro this part of the segment anymore. What am I going to tell you that you don't already know? They are dealing with a cascade of problems. The entire thing is a problem. They played Notre Dame, who represented a great chance to get a first ACC win. They were 1-9 in ACC play coming into that game, and Louisville was 0-9. Notre Dame was up by 30 at one point. Louisville closed the gap a little bit, but my goodness, in my opinion, this was in the conversation for worst performance of the season at one point in time.
Yeah, I think it's it's important. I'm glad that you said not just that they lost, but that at one point in the second half they're down by 30. Like, I think we have almost been too kind for how bad these performances are by just calling them losses. You know, and thinking, well, you know, they didn't really win games last year either. Listen, guys, we didn't play game after game after game last year. Even under Mike Pegues, we didn't play game after game after game against bad teams that they're down 20 and 30. Like, it is inexcusable that Louisville was down by 30 to a team that poor. This is not just a team that's still not winning games. This is a team that is getting humiliated by teams who have no business humiliating anyone.
The thing that stood out to me, so I listen to the radio broadcasts whenever I can, and you know, on our station at 93.9, and Paul and Jody were talking about, oh, this is such a strange lineup, and all I could think was, it's been strange lineups all season. And so this, you know, the one that made the run in the second half, let's just do that.
Yep.
You know, whatever that looks like, play a core four, play some of the younger guys, just find out what you have. When I hear that, you know, Fabio Basili's not playing because he doesn't understand the basic fundamentals. Who understands the basic fundamentals on this team?
That is the thing. And I'm so glad that you said that. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
That is the thing that also drives me crazy. Like, you can't possibly be telling me that the guys who play give you what you want to see in practice, given what we see in the games. It doesn't even appear by body language or by improvement or anything that anyone is particularly worked up about any of this. Multiple times this year, you know, Jalen Withers kind of dribbles the ball and was joking, you know, has the ball stolen by one of the Angels in the outfield. He just sort of loses the ball to whatever and just jogs it back down court. And the water off the duck's back of all of this is maybe the worst side of all.
110% honesty here. I don't know what quitting looks like at this point. If you can't at least have the conversation about that with the veteran guys on this team, because the things you're talking about, the issues that are still plaguing them not getting better, and then a guy like Emmanuel Okorafor comes in who, objectively, he played a good game. For a kid who just joined the team and came all the way from Africa, he did about as good as you could expect. But is it not telling that he's coming in and immediately doing some of the things that everybody's been screaming for Louisville's bigs to do all year? That seems pretty serious to me.
Yeah, and it lends credence to, you know, get the frontline guys out of there, let him start. Just figure it out. And this idea that he doesn't know the scheme or he doesn't know what, let's be honest, is the scheme working? Does it matter if he doesn't know the scheme?
What is the scheme?
Also, what is the scheme?
What
would you say you do here, as we would say in office space?
Who's the player on the team that you're like, oh, he knows the scheme?
You're at such a bottom point this season that the only thing that can really be gained is to figure out who can benefit us next year.
A youth movement. This entire season is contradictory, because if you're are you trying to win now, or do we have like the long game culture building thing in mind? But then if we have to keep the long term in mind, you would think they'd be going to the younger guys already. But we're talking about we're trying to build a culture, but we're expecting almost all these guys to leave after this year, and they're not coachable. Well, then why are we trying to lay a culture with these guys at all? Like, none of this is consistent with each other.
If you're building a culture, for whom are you building the culture? And if it's not the guys that are here, then simply put, you're not going to build a culture by allowing people like Sidney Curry, who does not put his best effort forward, to just continue to start because it's his birthright as a captain or something.
Luke said something that I think was very wise way back at the beginning of the
Luke
season.
Hancock knows for those
Yeah,
unaware. Just, you know,
Luke.
I don't think I have to specify him.
No, he probably doesn't. That's the thing. He doesn't.
But
He was kind of good.
He did a few things. He said, you know, it really would have been better for Louisville to have lost those first 3 games by like 15. But do it sending lessons. The proverbial "my team is on the floor" kind of thing.
You're talking about the 1-point losses.
Yes, the 3 1-point losses at the beginning of the season. Those should have been much worse, and you learned much firmer lessons from it. And instead, you've sort of tried to stick with best case. When let's just tear, like you said, let's tear this Band-Aid off and let's just try to learn some lessons, because we know they're not winning any games.
The last point I want on this is something that you're hitting on in terms of the contradicting winning now versus building for the future. Right. Louisville fans can tell a difference with that. They watch enough basketball, they care about it enough here that they are able to discern those two things. And that, as much as anything this year, should frustrate everybody else, because, as you're saying, basketball savvy folks are sitting here throwing their hands up like, I don't get the point of this, and that's the issue. If you're a Louisville Women's basketball fan, this was also a big week. I think they were put on the brink of getting a must-win game. They got the win. Here now to help break down that needed win for Louisville over Syracuse is Dave Skoll, who is new, but he is on ESPN Louisville. Him and Chrissy Banta often do the women's basketball post-game shows. Dave, it's good to have you, my friend. You know I'm his biggest Biscuit on Twitter, and I'm very comfortable saying it might be the first person who ever has Biscuit as a persona to be on the desk at WHS 11.
Look, hey, trendsetter, man. It's good. It's good to be here, Tyler. Appreciate you having me, buddy.
Of course, man. So this game was, I think you saw the best of Louisville, but you also saw the worst of them. We'll get to all that, but from the start, it was a totally different look. Jeff Walz decides to start Norika Kono, Mikasa Robinson, and Nyla Harris, who's just a freshman. What were your initial impressions or takeaways from seeing those three play with Haley Van Lith and Olivia Cochran to start?
I think, earlier this week we heard Jeff not even so much call it the team, but sort of say, look, I'm not sure how to motivate them and what I need to do to get through to them. And I think this was kind of him reaching into his bag of tricks and saying, look, nobody is untouchable here. The crux of the struggle this year has been defensive struggles, because we've always been able to play defense at Louisville. We've always forced turnovers. We've always gotten offense off of those turnovers. At the end of the game, they were just absolutely suffocating, which is what we've been wanting to see all year.
The two stars were Mikasa Robinson and Nyla Harris. Mikasa put up a stat line that you're kind of used to seeing from her at Louisville, but she hit a new career high in assists with 12. And then Nyla Harris, I really like her game. Jeff Walz has been high on her all season. She gets 18 points in the first game she starts.
18.6 rebounds.
Yeah.
Just a career effort from her first start. And not to mention, like with Mikasa, she gets 12 assists, 0 turnovers. She has been so steady all season with the ball, with a team that struggles with ball security and has turned the ball over at an alarming rate for a Jeff Walz team. She has been the one constant. Her and Cece combined for 20 assists and 2 turnovers.
Yep.
And the two of them combined for 10 steals, to talk about that pressure defense.
I think Mikasa brings a trusted ball handler to this team that they needed. They lost one with Chelsea Hall, and they kind of tried to figure out, all right, who can we give the ball to know that they're going to make the correct decisions? I think moving forward, and you might see Mikasa running the show a little bit. I'm not going to speak for Jeff Walz, but he did say that same starting five is going to be back for the next game against North Carolina. What impresses you the most about Nyla Harris?
It's really hard to say from a freshman, a first-year player, that I know exactly what I'm getting from you game in and game out.
Right.
I mean, she has 100% effort all the time, which is important, on a team that has struggled all year finishing around the rim. Nyla, it feels like every time she has the ball in close, she's finishing that.
Haley Van Lith, and we're going to get to this. Look, she's in a slump. Right now, Jeff Walz thinks that the minutes she has played, and granted, they're a lot this year. She's averaging quite a bit, are really taking a toll on her. But, Dave, I think she's just forcing things a little bit in this offense.
I think she's been pressing. I do. And she's not the only one that has struggled this year with ball security. I mean, Cece's turned the ball over quite a bit at times. Morgan at other times. Olivia. But Haley, she has such a high usage rate.
Yeah.
She plays so many minutes and she handles the ball so much that when she turns the ball over and she's struggling shooting, it really affects the play of the team. And she's at the point where, obviously, she's one of the best players in the country. She's the best player on the roster. But if she's turning the ball over like that, she's a detriment to the team. If she's pressing like that, she's dribbling into double teams. She's shooting when she should pass. She's passing when she should shoot. She puts so much pressure on herself, I feel like, to be the alpha and to be the player and the closer, that when she's 4 for 11, 4 for 12, she's not going to stop shooting. And all of a sudden, she's 4 for 20.
Yeah.
In addition to maybe turning the ball over 5 or 6 times. It's really hard to win the game when you've got somebody who's playing 38 minutes and playing like that. I think it was really good. Jeff sat her for 5 minutes in the first half. I mean, he sat her for quite a stretch.
Which is rare. That is
which
not
is
happening.
rare, yeah.
Yeah.
And then sat her again at the end of the game. I mean, that run that Louisville put together and stretched that lead out, they did it without Haley on the floor.
Which
she
is
watched
huge.
it. It's really big. And seeing Cece and Mikasa play Louisville basketball together, instead of having Haley out there, I think it kind of maybe put a shot into her. You could see it with that look on her face.
But if they want to improve their seeding, Sunday against North Carolina is massive for them to do so. But Dave Skoll, thank you for joining us, sir. You can catch
My
him
pleasure.
on ESPN Louisville with Chrissy Banta doing post-game shows after Louisville women's basketball games. But for now, I'm Tyler Griever. Thanks for watching The Wrap.